Thank you for stopping by to listen to our Analyzing Evidence, Making the Implicit Explicit YouTube video. Please note that we've included careful closed captioning, but that if you would like a copy of the slides, my email address, I'm Professor Scanlon, will be available at the end of this video. Analysis is important because even in essays that are not necessarily labeled analytical, knowing how to connect your key points of research, discovery, argument, or summary to your hypothesis will really take your paper and writing to the next level. Analysis of your own work is a writer-responsible cultural norm, meaning it is expected in most college courses in the United States, the UK, and Ireland. What we mean by this terminology, writer-responsible, is that the writer is responsible for making their meaning clear and explicit for their readers and audience. There are a couple ways to further your analysis. I'll talk about each now, and then I'll go into more detail. First, you can clarify your demonstrative pronouns or remove them. Second, you can be specific with the claims you're making. Third, you can focus on connecting to your topic sentences and thesis statement. Fourth, you can put yourself in the audience's position. And fifth, you should make sure you're not repeating or paraphrasing yourself or others' ideas without correct citation attribution. We'll go into more detail about that. So first, clarify demonstrative pronouns. Demonstrative pronouns are usually these, that, this, and those, sometimes such as in the English language. Demonstrative pronouns demonstrate something from the previous sentence or clause, hence the name. They're also sometimes just called demonstratives or determiners. So for example, I love the lake, that is beautiful. Or it's hard to find good running shoes, these are close. Or a good cup of tea gets me moving in the morning, this is important. However, when you don't have a clear modifying noun or noun phrase following the pronoun, especially in longer sentences, your meaning can be cloudy and implicit, as in the above sentences, instead of offering an explicit analysis. So, what can you do? You can either clarify them by adding a modifying noun or noun phrase, or you can remove them entirely. So let's go back to our previous examples. I love the lake. That scenery is beautiful. It's hard to find good running shoes. These ones are close. Or a good cup of tea gets me moving in the morning. This energy is important. That last one, let's take a look at how to remove it. A good cup of tea gets me moving in the morning. Energy is important. That's as simple as that. Look at those demonstrative pronouns. You can also use words from the material you're quoting or paraphrasing to really make your demonstrative pronoun work for you. For example, in the play Miss Evers' Boys, the main character explains the Tuskegee study to the patients, saying, quote, "The United States government I'm talking about now in Washington is sending us the best medicine to treat anyone in this country that needs it." Her choice of words, this choice of words, like best and needs, is important because we see her using them to try and sway the men to sign up for the care they'll get for free. You also want to be specific with claims, which is option 2. When you tell your reader something is important, relevant, or otherwise noteworthy in relation to the claims you're making, you need to tell them why it's important, relevant, or noteworthy with specific examples and analysis. Avoid assuming that your audience will reach the same conclusions. Instead, lay out your claims. So, for example, uh, relevancy, importance, and noteworthiness should not be up to your audience to determine. You must explain why. Let's look at an example. Syphilis cases across all age groups are on the rise for the first time in many years. In particular, underrepresented populations are most affected. The fact that racial and socioeconomic disparities continue in medicine is relevant as we consider ways to make equity a larger priority in healthcare. Providing more resources and funding will be two important means of addressing the underlying disparities which lead to an increase in cases. Now we're giving specific examples of how we can make this issue, how we can improve this issue, and why it's relevant. So we're looking at resources and funding. We're looking at the ways in which equity plays into this. And we're looking at the ways in which we've gotten to this increase in cases in the first place. We're not just saying it's important, we're explaining the why. You can also connect the claims you're making back to your thesis and topic sentences using specific language, like we did in the Miss Evers example, from those two areas of your paper, project, or presentation to further deepen your analysis and thus your audience's understanding. Which brings us to option 3. Focus on connecting your topic sentences and or your hypothesis statement. If your thesis statement uses particular terminology, you should use that same terminology throughout your paper to show a clear connection between ideas. If your topic sentences focus on addressing a specific claim in your statement, your evidence should support that claim, and your analysis should explain explicitly how your evidence supports that claim. So, for example, if your thesis argues racial disparities continue to result in negative health outcomes for underrepresented populations, your analysis will connect back to this idea. As shown by Mothasham, cases of syphilis are on the rise in part due to long-standing inequities that often lead to health inequalities. Thus, patients who have experienced inequity for years will continue to do so without an adjustment to the healthcare system. Now you're talking about the cause and effect here. You're looking at the cause about these negative health outcomes. You're looking at it in more detail with relation to syphilis, and now you're explaining what's going to happen if these inequitable outcomes continue. This method makes the flow of your paper stronger. When you refer back to the larger themes of your paper, your audience can remember what your claims were more readily and stay focused on the topic you're addressing instead of having to flip back to what your thesis statement reads. Furthermore, by linking the points you're making in your analysis back to your main ideas and thesis, you're crafting a well-reasoned, strong-flowing analytical response, argument, or piece of research. Which is important for option 4, putting yourself in your audience's position. You need to think about what information your audience, readers, viewers, listeners need to have to follow along from point to point. You also need to think about connections you absolutely need to make clear for your audience. Usually, these connections focus on new material you're presenting, a new angle you're using, or a creative exploration you're undertaking. If nothing else, think about what you would want to know if you were a reader, listener, or viewer and encountering this material for the first time. So, when you're researching your topic, encountering your idea, or otherwise engaging with the materials for the first time, consider what information surprised you and why. What was new or unfamiliar information you needed to learn more about? And what context did you need to do your work well? All of these areas should be addressed and explained with your audience. Again, don't assume your audience will reach the same conclusions as you. They don't necessarily have the same lived experiences, background, or research that you do. Show them explicitly what conclusions you reached by clarifying why you chose the information you did, why you chose the methodology or creative process that you did, why you incorporated specific sources over others, and so forth. Don't leave it up to your readers to connect the dots. And to do this work well, you're going to need to follow option 5, avoid repeating or parroting. In this case, repetition is not the mother of learning. Often, when we're struggling to grasp a new concept and explain it, we can fall into the trap of just repeating it with new words. For example, the research proves that syphilis cases are on the rise. When we read these facts, we learn that documented instances of syphilis have increased. We're basically saying the same thing here. Syphilis is occurring in larger numbers than previously documented, which is true, unfortunately. This is a logical fallacy called circular reasoning, where your analysis is the same as your evidence. You need to examine why this information stuck out to you. Sometimes paraphrasing it instead of quoting it directly can help. And then you can study the paraphrase material, asking yourself, what have you learned that you now want your readers to learn? Let's look back at our previous example. What importance does this fact present? The research proves that syphilis cases are on the rise. When we read these facts, we have to determine the reason for this increase. Some scholars, like those individuals Mothasham cites, argue that it's related to socioeconomic and historical inequities. Others are focused less on cause and more on prevention of further cases. Now you have two avenues to explore. You can explore the socioeconomic and historical inequities, and you can also focus on prevention. You have a lot more analysis now that you can do, and a lot more evidence you can now provide for your readers. Thanks for listening. If you have questions or would like a copy of these slides, you can email me at scanlon1@kenyon.edu. Come to Chalmers Library Floor 2 to chat with the Writing Center tutor today, or email me if you have questions. Thanks so much.